Hey, this is November 18th up at Harris Hill. It's Rob, Aaron, and Julie are out today. I'm working on another video related to flying. This time it's flying weather. And, you know, I'm not going to claim to be an expert on weather. I'm learning a lot of things myself, and I'm bouncing these ideas off of other people. And, sometimes, you know, it feels like you're not getting anything done. But at the same time, oftentimes you're getting a lot done and you don't realize you're getting a lot done. So, with what I'm trying to do this season, I have a new plan here. And I sort of prototyped it last year a little bit. But I think I'm going to go full on with this idea this year. And I'm calling this Sky Study. And what I'm going to do, or what my plan is to do, at least on the majority of the days that I'm going to go flying, if I'm not in too much of a hurry or I don't have too much on my plate, I'm going to actually do a quick study, and I'm going to try to set up a video camera so that I can talk and look and run through this quickly, using both of my hands to type and everything like that, unlike I'm doing now. But what I'm attempting to do here is, with this Sky Study idea, is to, you know, do a quick weather study at like 9 a.m. Of course, I've already got an idea that the day might be good because of maybe looking at weather underground and just seeing the wind, you know, a day or so ahead, the forecast wind direction and speed. But with this Sky Study thing, sometimes you have to wait till the data's a little bit fresher, like the morning of. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to run through my weather routine, I'm going to video it, and then if I decide to fly that day, I'm going to actually go out, fly, and record my flight, and then I'm going to append the part of the flight onto the video of the weather study, so that you can match what we saw on the weather study with what we actually saw when we were out flying that day. And in order to do this, you know, I need to do it quick and efficiently, and I need to basically condense it down into like a 5-minute video, and I need to do this like right at 9 o'clock or soon at that time, because, you know, I have to get ready and get on the road. I'm not going to miss a flying day because I, you know, took too much time analyzing the weather. So I got to get it efficient. But what I'm going to be doing in this process, and you'll see that in this video, is that I'm actually trying to go through here in an organized fashion, looking at different things. And what I need to do is have an outline for myself so that I don't miss anything. I think I actually have missed a couple items in this first video that I would normally look at. I think I was in a hurry to get myself around to go flying, and I didn't have an outline or a checklist. So going forward I will, though. And one of the things I think I missed in here is vertical velocity. I don't believe I talked about vertical velocity in this video, but I think I did actually look at it the day of the before going flying, but I was sort of scattered and I didn't videotape that portion of what I was doing. So anyways, what I wanted to say is I'm pulling this weather study from a bunch of different data sources and different programs, and kind of trying to merge it all in my mind, like, okay, what's the big picture of this day going to look like for flying? And, you know, a couple years ago I couldn't have done this because I've picked up so much from different tidbits that I've learned from my mentors and stuff related to weather. And I just wanted to mention a couple things here that I got help from a bunch of folks. Like one of the guys from the Heiner Club named Jim Keller, he actually sent me some information, like a whole bunch of emails related to things like the vertical velocity and the soar forecast and different stuff like that. There's a thing called FOUS 61. All this weather data is available from the government if you know where to look for it. So shout out to Jim Keller. He's a meteorologist and a retired hang glider pilot, and he's a sharer of knowledge. In fact, he gave me these books from his flying days, and he had these sitting around, and I've been working my way through these. Lots of good information in there. So thanks, Jim. And I wanted to also mention that Travis Koshko is a meteorologist, and we met Travis at Heiner one time. Will Perez and I were up there trying to fly. We had our gliders halfway set up, and we were hoping for the weather to get better. I think the wind was coming from the wrong direction a little bit, and we didn't want to chance launching. So we had lots of time hanging around there at launch, waiting, and we were talking to this Travis. And we didn't know Travis, but we just struck up a conversation, and we started talking about weather, and he said he was a meteorologist. He was actually doing photography work there at Heiner because it's a Heiner view. It's an overlook, and he was filming that day. So we had lots of time to talk, and we talked about, well, I think I mentioned skew T's to him because we were talking about looking at the wind profile and the dew point and the temperature and stuff affecting the soaring conditions. And Travis, once he made it known that he was a meteorologist, he says, "Oh, you should look into this program. If you like skew T's, you should look into this program called BUFKIT." He said, the meteorologists use this kit, and it's called BUFKIT because it came from Buffalo. I believe a university developed it to study the storm effects up around and the lake effect snow and things like that in Buffalo, New York. So anyway, Travis planted the seed, and then Will and I contacted Travis later and asked him some more questions about this. And of course, Travis sent us a lot of stuff back, including how to download this program and how to use it, the basics of it, what it does. So that led to some, I'll keep going here, but that planted the seed, meeting Travis. So, and then Chris Bruno, he is a hang glider pilot, and he's also an airline pilot. So I learned different tidbits from Chris too, and some of this I do prep before leaving the house, and some of it, what Chris taught me, is that you can also do it, when you're at a flying site too. So there's, airports typically have a automated weather observation system, or I think the terminology is AWOS or ASOS, or I can't keep straight these acronyms, but for example, Elmira, where Harris Hill is, that airport has a phone number, and it's an automated weather observation thing where they basically have it on a recording, and it's constantly updated, and it'll read out like wind speed, gusts, wind direction, and then it'll read a bunch of other stuff off too, like altimeter readings and things like that, and any warnings or whatever at the airport. And this recording just loops. So that's a resource that I don't know if a lot of people know, but you can look up what the AWOS is or the ASOS, and you can get that information like real time from the airport. And I do that frequently now, especially if I'm kind of like concerned about the big picture of like what the wind is doing in the valley or something, and not what I'm seeing up on the launch. If they don't match, I'm calling that airport a couple times, probably while I'm standing there on launch, to see what's going on down there at the, in the valley at the airport. So the other person I want to mention is Larry Bunner. He kind of got me started on this whole skew-T thing. Between him and Chris, Chris talked about skew-Ts, and Larry Bunner actually had a couple videos out on YouTube about how to read skew-Ts. And Larry is an expert level cross-country pilot, if you don't know him. And he's a real weather guru. And he's a master of the skew-T stuff. So I talked with Larry a couple times on the phone and emailing back and forth. And Larry taught me a lot of things, like, how to read the skew-T and how to make it work for you. See, the government had, or I think it was NOAA, had skew-Ts online, and you could basically, they were interactive. You could click on them, and you could get data, and you could figure out where cloudbase is, and all kinds of stuff from the skew-T. Well, let me get into, keep going on, keep rolling with this whole discussion. So leave it at that. Larry is a skew-T and weather guru and an awesome pilot. So, and then also Dennis Pagan. Dennis writes on all types of free flight topics, hang gliding and paragliding and weather topics. So I have a couple books from Dennis too. Plus I know Dennis and fly with Dennis. So I've picked up a bunch of things from Dennis directly, person to person. And I also wanted to mention Bob Beck. But Bob is a long-time hang glider pilot. And he's also a retired commercial pilot. So much of this weather and other advice that I've gotten over the last few years, a lot of it's come from Bob at different times, just conversation or whatever. But I'll tell you what, Bob knows when the sky is looking good for flying and when you're going to get a soaring flight. And I can tell you that story some other time, but a bunch of us other pilots were fooling around down in the landing field, building like a fire pit and stuff. Well, Bob sees the sky and he's like, I'm going up top. I'm going to go look at it. Well, Bob skies out and the rest of us were messing around too long in the LZ. We didn't get up there in time. We got flights in and they were okay flights, but boy, Bob picked it. He nailed it on the timing just by looking at the sky and reading the weather with his eyes. So I also wanted to mention Will Perez. Will Perez, is a local hang glider pilot, and we often fly together at Heiner. And he's my frequent flying partner, along with like Dennis and Sam and trying to think, Tom, Steve. There's local pilots that fly Heiner when it's too far away for a lot of the membership of Heiner to get there. We'll just go up and take a stab at flying it. So Will and I often fly together, but what Will contributes to the weather conversation is that he is a firm believer in this thought about the height of the mixing layer. And we've had numerous conversations about that. And in a sense, I kind of think his thoughts blend with the thoughts that we're getting from like BUFKIT, because when the government sites like NOAA report out on what the mixing layer height is, or like fire weather, what they're giving you is like the height that they expect stuff to rise in the atmosphere until it, I guess, gets transported, with the wind. So like if it was fire weather, it'd be sparks and things going up to that height and then blowing across the land. So that's why that data is available, but Will often uses the height of the mixing layer and says, you know, that's about how high we're going to get today. You know, if we get a decent flight in and everything works out, that's probably as high as we're going to get is up at that mixing layer area. So, well, anyway, let me move on back to the thought about this BUFKIT. So, whoops, I'm sorry. I'm all over the place here. But I'm getting excited about this because it's been a long time in the coming to actually have the time and the resources and everything all in place here to put this video together. So, anyways, what I wanted to say, this is quite a bit about BUFKIT, but it's also about other weather routines. So, I'm trying to do a comprehensive study on a day's flying weather quickly but effectively by looking at many things and how they relate. Well, the government shutting down the SKUT website was a driver as far as me trying to, you know, really delve into this BUFKIT thing and go all in on it. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I use BUFKIT now, and I'm going to show you some other sources of data, stuff to be mindful of in this video. And then at the end of the video, you're going to get to see what the sky actually looked like that day. That's why I'm calling this sky study, because you can get a feel for like what the data showed us and what actually happened when we went out flying. And in this particular video, I think something's gonna come shining through here that we kind of knew, but we didn't want to believe, so we went flying anyway. And that was the jet stream dipping down into New York State where we were flying at Elmira. You know, there was a long-time pilot up at Harris Hill, and you know, in the Rochester Area Flyers Club as well, that would say, his name's Ed, and he would always say, oh, I don't want to go flying that day because you know, he doesn't like the jet stream. He says, I don't like it when the jet stream is passing directly overhead of us because it's just going to make your flight turbulent, and he said it's not something he enjoys. So anyway, you're going to see some of that in this video, I believe. You know, I think our timing was such that the jet stream actually was affecting the lower level air currents where we were flying, because it was kind of a weird day to be landing. I'll say that. So anyways, you'll have to watch the flight to get some of that. And at the end, I took a short video of Rob Skinner, who was my flying partner that day, and of his landing, and it looked scary coming down. Like there was wind shear or you know, gradient happening and turbulence and stuff. It's normally not that way, but today was a special day when we were flying. That I believe it was like November 18th, 2024. So anyhow, I hope you enjoy this video, and when it's all said and done here, I hope to improve upon this process of the sky study and do it quickly and efficiently, and be able to get a much better understanding of the conditions that I'm flying in and that other pilots are flying in. And I want to see something good come out of this, that we all learn something from it, and we walk away a little bit smarter about the weather. And the other thing I'd like to do is, you know, I personally missed Lisa Verzilla's weather presentation. Not on purpose, I just wasn't available. But I hope to watch her presentation, and I hope to share this presentation with her and see whether, you know, whether I'm on track with this from her perspective, because she's obviously an expert, much more than I am on this stuff. So because she's a pilot and also a meteorologist, with current meteorology experience and everything. So I'm hoping to chat with Lisa after she sees this video and I see her presentation from the one she gave at the RAF, and guess we'll go from there. But so next steps for me is after this is all said and done, I'm gonna put a second video out on the mechanics of using BUFKIT. In other words, I'm gonna show you how I set it up, from the process of downloading it, installing it on my computer, and then the initial setup for getting the data. One of the things that, you could hack around at it and you could probably figure it out, but since I already hacked around with it and figured it out, I want to share that with you, because you don't have to recreate all this stuff. You can just basically copy paste it and put it into the BUFKIT, and it'll, like if you're on the East Coast, it'll pull data from all these different stations at these different airports. It'll pull that data and load it for the models that you select. And I have 3 models in there. I believe I have what do I have? I'm having a brain fart here. I have GFS. Yeah, you'll see it in the presentation. HRRR, and I think I have NAM also in my standard download FTP download instructions for the program. So I'm gonna give you that information in a second follow-up video, and probably I might even post some of this stuff on the Soaring Road Trip website, so that if somebody went on the Soaring Road Trip, they could just get a link to go to where to download the program, and then also be able to go and get the text file that forms the instructions that tells the program where to download the weather profiles. So I know I said a lot there. It's kind of crazy, but you'll see it once you see it, you see it, and it won't be that hard. So, all right. Well, hey, enjoy. I figure it like this. You share knowledge with other people, what you know, it becomes more powerful. Other people might see that and have an idea that builds upon that and makes something even better. So I'm hoping that by putting this video out there and starting this discussion on this stuff, that I'll get some feedback and get even more tuned into what's going on with this. And at some point, once I have confirmation that I am really understanding all this stuff, and also maybe I can get some help from some other people, what I'd like to do is improve the Soaring Road Trip with better weather information that can be done by anyone. Basically take some of what Jim Keller has shared, what Travis has shared. Different folks have given this stuff. They've given this information out. How can we present it in a way that more pilots can make use of it and make use of it easier? So, and that's the other thing. In those emails that Jim Keller shared with me, he had all kinds of things, like you can calculate cloudbase manually, and you can figure out a bunch of stuff just by pulling some data off of those weather information pages that like NOAA has, and the Federal Aviation Weather website. So what I'm saying is I used a lot of Jim Keller's ideas and I put them into a spreadsheet to do those calculations, so you don't have to sit there with a calculator. It's on Excel. You can just change a couple numbers and boom, there you have cloudbase. So I'm going to want to get all this information gathered up together and then put it on the Soaring Road Trip as a more unified approach to make it easier for people to get their hands on this stuff. So anyhow, that's all. I better just quit now. Hey, thanks for listening. So yeah, as you watch this video, keep an eye out for the part on the jet stream. I think you'll find that interesting because at the end of the day, when we landed, you know, I sort of second guessed whether we should have flown with that jet stream, you know, ahead of flying because of what longtime pilot and also a mentor, Ed Jowett, said about this. You know, he said he didn't like flying when the jet stream was directly overhead of where we were. And, you know, we're in, you know, near the Elmira airport flying at Harris Hill. And, you know, this morning of this flight, I looked at the jet stream and, you know, I thought, well, maybe it'll be moved out of there or something will change between now and when we fly. So I was a bit concerned of it just because of what Ed had always said, that he just didn't enjoy flying because of the turbulence when the jet stream was overhead. Well, we went out and looked at actual conditions and we flew, but I will tell you, the landing that we had, you know, the landings we had were a little spooky, I would say, because there was a lot of like wind gradient, maybe some sort of wind shear going on in the, you know, in the layers of air as we're passing down through them, in, you know, coming down from a higher altitude to a lower altitude. I think we were experiencing some form of wind shear because the landing approaches were very sketchy. You know, Rob practically came straight down for a while and then he bounced up a while and then he's just like turning and then all over the place, you know. And my landing was the same way, but I think his might have been exaggerated even a little more than mine was, and it was kind of spooky, kind of bizarre. So, I mean, there is something to that 150 mile an hour or whatever it is, way up high at 30,000 feet. Somehow it's affecting the turbulence in the air down below. I am not one to answer how it does that, but I mean, it just our experience this day shows that something was up with that. Hi, good morning. This is Aaron. Hey, I'm going to just go through a quick weather check on the morning that I'm thinking of going flying today. It's November 18th, and I'll try to see if I can keep this to 10 minutes as to what I look at and what I do. You know, I'm certainly not a weather expert, but I'm trying to use the tools that are available out there. And so as a first look, I go on Weather Underground, and I'm looking at Harris Hill, which is Elmira, and you can see the wind direction there is northwest. I'm looking at around 3 p.m., probably being the time I would want to fly. 2 to 3, maybe 4. And anyways, so that gives me a first look. And usually Weather Underground's pretty good about, you know, if you look the day before on here and then you look maybe the morning of, it's fairly accurate hourly as to what the, you know, wind direction and wind velocity at the surface is going to be. Just from my own experience, I've noticed that. And so then the next thing that I've been doing, since the government took down the normal SKU-T charts that I used to look at, I'm using this other program called BUFKIT, and it's a free program that like meteorologists can use, and just really anybody can use it if they want to experiment with it. It's my understanding this was developed in Buffalo, and that's why they call it BUFKIT, and it was to be able to look at SKU-Ts and weather profiles so that they could determine what storm impacts were going to be. So anyway, that's what I can tell you about that. So in here, it lets you see the models. There's GFS3, which I've already loaded the data for these this morning about, say, 8 o'clock in the morning. So I have it set up for 3 models: GFS, NAM, and HRRR. So the way I do this, I'll start out in GFS, and I'll get this to 1 o'clock p.m. Let's see, I'll put it on. Say there's 2 o'clock. So this is giving you the temperature and dew point profile going up in the atmosphere, and I have inversions clicked on there. I also have, let's see, what else is interesting here. Oh, you can switch this to a skew T by clicking this or like this, but it's actually a little bit easier to read without the skew T on the profile. So what it's telling me, though, that the usable information that I'm looking for out of this is what's the wind velocity doing with altitude. And you see this is the direction, and then this is the wind speed. So I'm looking at that and I'm saying, well, you know, it could be kind of strong. And then I'm also, if you look on the other side of this, I have this set up so that I can see. So the time, I'm toggling the time right now. There's 2, there's 3. It looks like it's backing down a little bit in velocity as the day goes on. So I'm kind of, ooh, I went back up. Anyways, what I'm looking at here is this yellow line is mixing layer, and this other is vertical velocity, the white, and then the green indicates instability. So that's a good thing, some instability in the atmosphere. You have thermals. It does show that there's some kind of an inversion thing going on here. I'll look at a different model once. Still 3 p.m. So what I'm seeing here is that this is showing that clouds are going to form in this area here. This is sort of like an inversion. This might be, you know, top of lift. Also on the indices, the LCL, it's showing 3092 there. Well, let's see. HRRR, look at the other model ones. Okay, so that one, Monday, 3 p.m. I mean, I kind of like that. It's showing this a bit higher over here, LCL. So I don't know. I don't know what it's going to do. So a couple other things. Oh yeah, and there's the mixing layer going up above 3000. There's 3K. So that's about what information I'm getting out of this at this time. And I'm going to check a couple other things today. Oh, there's a There's also another way to do some analysis on what maybe cloudbase would be, or excuse me. You can input the high temperature of the day, and you can put in the dew point at the high temperature of the day, and that's another way to sort of check cloud base. So that comes up to 4,400 feet. And that's just using simple calculation. I just have it set up in Excel to do that. But I get this data from the let me show you where I get this data from. National Weather Service. You can click on this report here, and then I have it for Elmira. It's temp. The 59 and the 38 came from right there. Temp and dew point 1800. You're using the high temp of the day and the dew point at that high temp. So that's how I got that data. Let's see, what else do I want to show you? On the Soaring road trip, I like to look at this surface prog chart. This is actual government provided data from the Aviation Weather Center. I just have a quick link to it on the road trip site. It makes it easy for me to find. So it's 1800. Let's see, that'd be it's 12 Zulu, so there's 1800 Zulu. So that's showing between here, 12 Zulu and 18 Zulu, this front moves through. And that, you know, I don't really want to be flying right when the front's moving through. I'm thinking about, you know, after that, at 1800 Zulu would be like 1 o'clock, I believe. And, you know, so after that, 3 o'clock, this thing's is moved down here by that point. So I'm hoping that Elmira would be clear of most of the effects of that front passing through. It could still be a bit rough because of it. Another thing that I want to look at is if I go to Harris Hill here and I look at, I would go to this Sorecast, Roland Sorecast. So that's showing the same thing with the wind, basically northwest. Something I wanted to point out that I thought was interesting is you go down here and look at this. It has a link for the jet stream, which is good to look at that too. That's a little bit concerning, that where the jet stream is. 2 p.m. EDT. So the jet stream, there is some pretty strong wind above 100, 130. I presume that's knots. And that is showing it above New York State. Elmira would be in there. By 8 p.m. it's moved off and it's less. So, you know, what's it going to be like at 3 o'clock? I don't know. You know, are the effects of this going to be, this is way high, jet stream at 30,000 feet. So how much of that upper air turbulence is going to make it rough down where we're flying? That's a question. So I think I'm going to go to Harris Hill today, and I'm going to just try to evaluate the conditions that I see on the ground and see what it looks like, see how gusty it is, and then make my decision to fly based on that. So okay, well, let me show you one other thing I think is interesting. There is a Soarcast report that a sailplane pilot has put together, and I use that sometimes to look at what the vertical velocity is. Or I use this to look at cloudbase and stuff. So go on here. This is soarforecast.com, and I'm going to pick Rayab Station Buffalo, and then down here I'm going to put KELM, and that'll be Elmira. Submit this request. Oops, some fields left empty. What did I not do? Oh, pick 12,000, complete report, submit the request. Let's see what this is given. So it's base of clouds 3774, and they say that the altitude that you can get for top of lift would kind of correspond to a -3 on this TI. So if you look at that, 2.9, -2.9, -4.7. So it's somewhere close to 3,500 feet is what you would expect the top of lift to be. And that's looks kind of consistent with what I see in these SKUTs when I look at the GFS. 3 o'clock p.m. Whoops. 3 p.m. Yeah, I'm looking at, there's like 3,000. You can see that's where this inversion kind of a thing starts. 24 mile per hour wind. So yeah, so I think I'm gonna give it a go. Go check it out. Hope you enjoyed this little weather demo. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you to all the mentors that have helped me along in my journey to become a pilot. And I really do appreciate it, and I know I can't list everybody in this discussion on weather. I tried to, show who did what as far as, providing knowledge to me regarding weather stuff. And, there's been a lot of other pilots that have given me tidbits and information over the years too. So just thank you to you all for being very supportive, and we all work together and we have a great time. So thanks again. Okay, ready? Yep. Clear.
pretty smooth. Feels good.
Here comes Rob landing. The wind has gone quite north, and when I landed there seemed to be a lot of wind gradient. Oh yeah, he's bobbing around there. It's kind of a weird day to land. There's a lot of sink and ups and downs and bouncing around. Nice. Wow. That was really something. There was quite a bit of wind, but it was turbulent on the way down.